Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. I receive literally hundreds of questions from you guys, but there is one part of my tank which seems to have more interest than the rest. Pablo, my boxfish. Pablo is an absolute legend and is by far my favourite fish, so if you like Pablo too, why not click that like button to show him some love. Boxfish have a real personality compared to most fish, and from my experience they also appear to be far more intelligent. They're one of the most desirable yet equally frustrating fish to keep, so I thought I'd share my experience with you all. If it weren't for the fact they had some significant downsides and a very low survival rate, I'd recommend everyone had one. More often than not, this low survival rate is due to feeding, which is a bit of an enigma because once they're settled in, they usually won't stop eating. I've had the pleasure of keeping 3 of these fish over the last 11 years, and the first lasted approximately 48 hours before it died and disappeared without a trace. It was eating and appeared completely healthy, but I never found the body. That's right, you heard me. I never found the body, and there were no side effects to any of the livestock in my tank. I also know that fellow YouTuber Scott Anderson from Mile High Reefers didn't notice any negative effects from his fish, a very similar cowfish, when that went missing and the body was never recovered. This is a myth I'd like to dispute. I've never known of any box or cowfish to destroy a tank just from dying. That doesn't mean they can't destroy it though. Where boxfish can cause a few issues to us hobbyists is their ability to release a deadly toxin, but only when they're alive as is part of their mucus layer. In the ocean, this ability to release a force field of chemical warfare when stressed is very much limited to the specific area they're in, as it only lasts long enough to prevent unwanted predation before being diluted by the vastness of the ocean. However, in our systems, one day an aggressive tank mate or even an overly zealous cleaner ass may push your cute little boxfish too far. The boxfish then oozes out a slimy cloud of death, silent yet deadly, which rapidly circulates around the system, not entirely unlike a fart in an elevator. This underwater equivalent of a Dutch oven then continues to gradually choke the life out of every living thing in your tank. As I haven't been able to speak to anyone who's actually had this happen to them, I'm assuming this is a rarity. I'm yet to know if the boxfish itself can survive a concentrated dose of its own brand. Boxfish unfortunately have a reputation for randomly dying, especially in dealers' tanks. While creating this video, I spoke to a number of fish shops who have had literally hundreds of them in their care over the years. None of them have ever caused a wipeout. I believe the fish must have to be severely stressed before it's willing to press that self-destruct button. My second attempt at one of these beauties came in the form of Pablo, who I've now had for 2.5 years. For years, I wanted another boxfish, but like many of you, I had heard all the horror stories regarding nuking a tank. Therefore, I wasn't willing to tempt fate a second time after my first experience. Pablo is easy to recognise even by someone inexperienced, because if I say to anyone, point out the boxfish, people know exactly which one he is because of his cube-like appearance. Another notable feature is his bone structure and coloration. As you can see, these fish aren't going to be winning any swimming competitions, therefore they've gone down a different evolutionary path and developed 2 forms of defence. The first being the form of becoming literally a living tank. They essentially have a hard outer shell to protect their delicate bone structure, which I can't imagine is very appetising, and if that doesn't put off a would-be predator, their coloration of black polka dots on a striking yellow background acts as a warning of just how lethal they are. Luckily, they are extremely peaceful and generally keep to themselves, virtually ignoring all other tank mates, and so far I've never seen anything go for Pablo either. Although poorly designed from a conventional swimming point of view, these fish use a different form of propulsion by rapidly undulating their tiny fins. This style sacrifices speed for precision and allows the fish to turn 360 degrees, while in the same spot, not entirely unlike a helicopter. You should only ever consider this fish if you have the right setup for it. That adorable little cube does have the ability to turn into a foot-long Goliath, therefore they need a considerable sized tank, and peaceful tank mate selection is very important. I often get asked if there are any issues with having them with powerheads. Mine is with 2 MP40s, and a healthy specimen shouldn't have any issues swimming around them. When selecting a fish, only select one which is actively swimming and alert. Inspect them closely for any signs of white spot as they're prone to it, and ensure that you see them feeding ferociously at the shop. Assuming you find a specimen which ticks all these boxes, I strongly advise you still quarantine this species. This gives you a chance to monitor its behaviour while allowing the fish to acclimate to a life in captivity in the peace and comfort of an empty tank. It also gives you a chance to offer it a variety of foods which the fish can test at its own pace without any competition. These fish are slow feeders and can easily be outcompeted by other tank mates. They will usually try a whole range of different foods once acclimated to aquarium life, and I believe this is the key to success with them. If one day it decides it's not interested in one of them, you have a range of other options to try. This will also provide the fish with a more nutritious diet, further strengthening their immune system. Mine now eats everything from mysis to pellets and even nori, usually being the first at the dinner table, and he'll even spit water at me when he gets impatient. Plenty of live rock is essential to provide a more natural diet, as in the wild this fish will cruise the rockwork, pruning algae and hunting down little crustaceans and worms. This leads nicely to my final experience with a boxfish. This is Rosa. Rosa is a female Hawaiian boxfish which are known to have an even poorer survival rate than Pablo, but this wasn't my issue. Rosa was good as gold, for a few days, and then suddenly I noticed some of my corals were starting to look very unhappy and even disappearing. At the same time as adding her, I also added Lily, my regal angelfish, who I originally blamed as having an all-you-can-eat buffet on my corals. It turns out that Rosa was the culprit, and she had to be moved to a fellow reefer's fish-only system, who still has her to this day. This is the most popular question I get asked. Are they reef safe? To some extent, yes. Pablo hasn't ever touched anything, but it's quite possible he is the exception to the rule. So in answer to the question, do you really want a boxfish? Probably not, if I'm honest. To some extent, it's just luck that Pablo turned out the way he did. And for every Pablo who does survive this long, there are hundreds of less fortunate fish. I hope you enjoyed watching my video. Let me know in the comment section your experience with these fish, and if you have any questions, have a good week and I'll see you next time. As always, I just want to say a massive thank you to all the people that support me on Patreon. Never underestimate the value of what you do with regards to keeping this channel going. You've all been brilliant. Thank you.